She stood at his grave in a white mourning dress. She bowed, slowly, respectfully. She even cried. But I was the only one at that funeral who knew the truth. She was not mourning him. She was making sure he was gone. And the worst part? She almost got away with it. His name was Park Jisoo, and if you had met him on any ordinary Tuesday morning in Seoul, you would have liked him immediately. He was 34 years old, quiet, careful with his words, the kind of man who held doors open and remembered your coffee order after meeting you once. He had built his company from nothing, not with his family's money, although they had plenty of it. No, Jisoo had done something rare in his world. He had walked away from his father's company at 26, started his own technology firm with 3 employees in a rented basement in Mapo, and 8 years later, that same firm employed over 400 people and had offices in Seoul, Tokyo, and Singapore. His father had never forgiven him for leaving. His mother had never stopped worrying about him. And his younger brother Junho, well, Junho was a different story entirely. But we will get to that. First, you need to understand what Jisoo wanted more than anything. It was not money. He had that. It was not recognition. He had that too. What Park Jisoo wanted, the thing he had never been able to find in 34 years of living, was someone who saw him. Not the company, not the achievement, not the family name. Him. And then, one evening at a company dinner in Gangnam on a Friday evening in October, Jisoo noticed her before she had even sat down. Shin Yura was the kind of woman people described in contradictions: warm but calculated, open but private, soft-spoken but always in control of every room she entered. She was 31, a marketing consultant who had worked with half the major companies in Seoul. Her client list read like a who's who of Korean corporate power, and every single one of her former clients spoke of her in the same way: brilliant, professional, and completely unforgettable. When she walked into that dinner at the rooftop restaurant on a Friday evening in October, Jisoo noticed her before she had even sat down. Not because she was trying to be noticed. That was the thing about Yura. She never tried. She simply arrived, and the room adjusted to her presence. Jisoo was not a man who approached women at events. He found it uncomfortable, slightly performative. But that evening, something was different. His colleague Kim Hyun-woo had introduced them at the drinks table, a casual introduction, nothing more, and Yura had looked at him with the kind of attention that most people spent their whole lives searching for. She did not check her phone, did not glance around the room, did not perform interest. She simply looked at him and listened. They talked for 2 hours without realizing it. By the time the other guests began to leave, Jisoo had told her things about himself he had never told anyone. About the loneliness of building something alone, about the years of distance with his father, about the brother he loved but could never fully trust. He did not know why he was telling her all of this. He only knew that it felt safe. That was her gift, making people feel safe. And it was the most dangerous thing about her. What happened next still haunts me. They began seeing each other 3 weeks after that dinner, and within 2 months, Yura had become the most important person in Jisoo's life. She was everything he had ever wanted: attentive, intelligent. She understood his work in a way that his family never had. She pushed him gently when he doubted himself. She celebrated his achievements without making him feel like that was all she was there for. His employees noticed the change in him. He smiled more. He stayed less late at the office. He seemed lighter. Even his mother, Park Myung, a woman not easily impressed by anyone, admitted quietly to her sister that the girl seemed good for her son. Only one person was not celebrating: Junho. Park Junho was 3 years younger than Jisoo and had lived his entire life in his brother's shadow, not because Jisoo had placed him there, Jisoo had never wanted that, but because Junho had never managed to step out of it himself. He worked at their father's company, a comfortable position, a good salary, a life that most people would have been grateful for. But Junho was not most people. He was a man who had always believed, quietly and bitterly, that he deserved more than what life had given him, and that the reason he had less was because Jisoo had taken it. So when Jisoo brought Yura to the family home for the first time on a Sunday afternoon in December, his eyes bright, his smile wider than anyone had seen in years, Junho watched her across the dinner table. And something moved behind his eyes that no one else caught, because Junho had seen Yura before. Not at a company event, not at a mutual friends gathering. He had seen her 6 months earlier, in a coffee shop in Itaewon, sitting with a man that was not Jisoo. And the way they had been speaking, close, intense, private, was not the way two strangers spoke. Junho had not thought about it again, until now. He did not tell Jisoo. Not yet. Instead, he watched. Junho had never been as gifted as his brother in business, but he was patient, he was quiet, and he had an instinct for people that most men twice his intelligence did not possess. Over the following 3 weeks, he began to pay attention to Yura in ways that she would not notice. He cross-referenced her client history, spoke to 2 former colleagues who had worked with her at a previous firm, made a casual call to a university friend who worked in financial consulting and knew most of the key players in Seoul's corporate world. What he found was not dramatic, not at first. Yura's career was exactly as she had described it. Her reputation was genuine. No one had a bad word to say about her professionally. But there was a gap, 18 months between 2 positions on her professional record, a period she had never mentioned to anyone as far as Junho could tell. No company name, no explanation. He dug deeper. And what he found in that gap, buried in a business registration record that had been quietly dissolved, stopped him completely. During those 18 months, Yura was a co-director of a small investment consultancy. The other director? A man named Oh Tae-jun, the same man Junho had seen her with in the coffee shop in Itaewon. Junho sat with this information for 2 days. Then he made a decision that would change everything. He went to see Oh Tae-jun himself. He didn't understand it then, but I do now. He should never have gone alone. Oh Tae-jun was not hard to find. He lived in a modest apartment in Seocho. He was 42. He had the look of a man who had once had more and was still adjusting to having less. He opened the door and looked at Junho for a long moment. Then he stepped back and let him in without a word, as if he had been expecting this visit, as if he had been waiting for someone, anyone, to finally come. They sat at a small kitchen table. Tae-jun poured 2 glasses of barley tea. His hands were steady, but his eyes were not. "How did you find me?" he asked. "Does it matter?" Junho said. Tae-jun looked at his tea. "She's with someone I care about. I need to know who she is." A long silence followed. Then Tae-jun set down his glass. And what Tae-jun told Junho over the next 40 minutes, quietly, carefully, with the flat tone of a man who had already grieved everything he needed to grieve, was this. Shin Yura had come into his life 4 years ago, the same way she had come into Jisoo's, an event, an introduction, that quality of attention that made you feel like the most important person in any room. They had fallen in love quickly, built the consultancy together. He had invested everything, his savings, his apartment, his professional relationships, into the business and into her. And then, 18 months later, she had transferred the company's remaining assets to a third-party account, dissolved the business, disappeared from his life without a single message. He had reported it to the authorities, but Yura had been careful. Every transfer had documentation. Every decision had been made jointly on paper. Nothing she had done was technically criminal. She had simply built a relationship with a man who trusted her completely, waited until she had access to everything, and then walked away with what she needed. Junho drove back to his apartment in silence. He called Jisoo 3 times. Jisoo did not answer. Because at that exact moment, Jisoo was sitting across from Yura at a restaurant in Hanam-dong, signing a joint investment document that she had prepared, a document that would give her co-signatory access to his personal investment portfolio worth 460 million won. Junho got there in 22 minutes. He ran the last block. He pushed through the restaurant door and scanned the room. He saw Jisoo at a corner table, a document on the table, a pen in his hand. And Yura across from him, her expression calm, that soft smile exactly in place, watching Jisoo's hand move toward the signature line. Junho crossed the room in 7 seconds. "Hung, stop!" Jisoo looked up, startled. Yura's smile did not move, not even slightly. And that was the moment Junho understood, truly understood, what he was dealing with. "Junho, what are you—" "Do not sign that document." Jisoo set the pen down slowly. His voice was careful. "What is happening right now?" Junho placed his phone on the table. The screen showed Oh Tae-jun's company registration, Yura's name beside his, the dissolved consultancy, the dates. Jisoo looked at the screen. Then he looked at Yura. Yura looked at him. Her expression had not changed. That was the most frightening thing. Not anger, not panic, not guilt. Nothing. Just the same calm, measured look she had worn every day of the 8 months they had been together. "You should have told him to come alone," she said quietly to Junho. Then she stood, picked up her bag, smoothed her jacket. "I'll leave you two to talk." She walked out of the restaurant, unhurried, composed, completely in control to the very last moment. Jisoo sat at that table for a long time after she left. He did not speak. He did not cry. He simply looked at the unsigned document and understood how close he had come. They never found enough to charge her. The document was unsigned. No money had moved. No law had been broken, at least not one that could be proven. Yura vanished from Seoul within 2 weeks. Some said she moved to Busan. Others said abroad. No one knew for certain. Oh Tae-jun's case was closed without resolution. And Jisoo? Jisoo took 3 months away from the company. He did not talk about it publicly, did not post about it, did not perform his pain the way people sometimes do when they need others to witness their suffering. He simply went quiet. And in that quiet, something shifted between him and Junho. The years of competition, the unspoken resentment, the distance that had grown between them so slowly that neither had noticed when it started. All of it dissolved. because Junho had come through a restaurant door and run across a room for him. And Jisoo understood, finally, that the person he had never seen clearly was not in front of him at that corner table in Hanamdong. He had been standing behind him the entire time. On the day Jisoo returned to work, a Monday morning in April, the cherry blossoms just starting along the Han River, Junho was waiting in the lobby with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to his brother without a word. Jisoo took it, and for the first time in a very long time, they walked into the building together. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. Sometimes, the person trying to destroy you reveals the person who was always there to protect you. You just had to be paying attention. Shin Yura never used force. She never raised her voice, never made a threat, never broke a single rule, at least not one anyone could prove. She simply found the one thing every person she targeted had in common, the need to be truly seen. And she gave them exactly that, until she didn't need to anymore. There are people in this world who do not love you. They study you, and sometimes the two feel exactly the same. The only difference is time. If this story made you think about trust, about the people closest to you, about how well we really know the ones we love, subscribe to Afro Black Soul. New stories every week. And tell me in the comments, would you have seen the signs?